people can recognize the threat, or at least are a little bit more aware of it, I think that ultimately, and they just don't click on the link or don't give their credentials away. I think that ultimately has more effect than just a tool, because no tool will catch everything.
True.
Obviously, you need both. There's no question about it. But if there's only one to start with, to me, it would be training.
So hey everyone, hi, my name is Agustin. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Cyber Express. So delighted to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, so could you just briefly tell us a little bit about yourself and things like that?
Sure. Sumitomo is a global chemicals manufacturing company, or at least Sumitomo Chemical is the unit that I work for. And we own 7 groups of companies in North and South America. And basically, I am the regional CISO. So I oversee the cybersecurity program. I am also on the board of the Sumitomo Global IT Management Team. So I help Sumitomo develop global standards for IT. Last 3 to 5 years, we've been really focusing on cyber. So that's basically why they asked me. And so we come up with global cybersecurity standards. And then since I'm the head of this region, I make sure they get implemented. First by us to make the systems available to all the group companies. And then each of the group company who have their own IT department, they will then operationalize it.
Right.
So we help implementing it. We help with training. We help with operating procedures.
Oh, good deal. All right. So I think to begin with, let us just talk a little bit about the cybersecurity trends that is right now affecting several companies globally. And then from your role, could you just let me know a little bit about the prevention and the mitigation mechanisms that companies should globally adapt to have more insight into cyber threats?
Yeah, I think with at least with large firms like ours, there's always the issue of, is this something that the headquarters should own? Is this something that the group company should own, right? Because so Sumitomo tried to manage cybersecurity out of Japan globally,
right?
And they realized that it's impossible, right? There's too much time difference, and they don't know every single group company, the day-to-day operations. It's very hard for somebody in the other side of the world to decide if it's a false positive or not. So there's a lot of reasons not to do it globally. On the other hand, it also doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to ask each of the group companies to do exactly the same, right? Because cybersecurity there's nothing unique about it. Everybody faces the same issues. So I pitched for a regional solution where we say, we create a solution and we apply that to all the group companies within our region. Because we're still in the same time zone. We have a specialized cybersecurity group. This is all we do. We're all certified and decades of experience. And so, let us help you set up this cybersecurity program. But then when it comes to day-to-day operation, obviously, that needs to be done by the group companies, because we don't have access and don't want to have access to their daily operational systems. But we're also limited in size, and so are the group companies, and they don't have a whole lot of cybersecurity specific expertise. So that's why we went to next gen solutions, which are usually AI-driven tools that are more or less set and forget, right? So that's one thing we focused on, to go with the the CrowdStrikes and the proof points, the ones that really are the big players, and they're relatively easy to manage also from a daily operations. And important is that everything integrates, right? We noticed that yes, you can have great ASM tool, attack surface management, you can have great patch management tools and vulnerability scan, but if they're not integrated, it's fairly useless, right? The vulnerability scan will detect hundreds, if not thousands, of vulnerabilities, but that doesn't help your patching system, right? You need to figure out which ones are really exploitable, and you need to prioritize those vulnerabilities. And so that's where purple teaming comes in play, to say, let's test these vulnerabilities to see which ones are exploitable, and then tell the patch management system this is the priority in which you need to patch.
Okay.
So just integrating those next gen tools is just as important as the tool themselves.
Got it. Okay, so now that you're a CISO, you're a CIO, it's basically your responsibility to choose the right kind of tools as well. I think the conversation now that it is around it. So what are you, is there a checklist for you whenever you are choosing a particular cybersecurity tool?
Yes, of course, we have our set of requirements, right? It needs to be integratable with our SIM, right? Because ultimately everything needs to flow into that SIM, which we have outsourced. We have a third-party SOC and SIM. So that's one requirement. B, I look at the successful attacks we've had over the last couple of years. So we make sure we're able to simulate those attacks, and to make sure that they get detected by the new tools. And user interface to me is very important, right? Because we ultimately want to hand off those tools to IT people who are not necessarily cybersecurity people, and
Right.
they still need to be able to work with those tools.
Okay, got it. Okay, so it's also now your responsibility to make sure that the CEOs understand the language of cybersecurity. Okay, and also cybersecurity becomes a discussion for the board. So in that conversation, how do you often communicate? How exactly, now that you're a CISO yourself, how exactly do other CISOs should do it whenever they are facing some sort of an impediment there?
Yeah, it's always the hard part is always selling it to the CEOs, right? Because they need to pay for it.
Right, exactly.
And it's easily seen as an overhead cost and an unnecessary, right, type of cost.
True that.
And it's and people try to say, you know what, it's like an insurance, but that doesn't do it anymore, right? So what I usually suggest when I speak at conferences about these type of situations is, don't let any cybersecurity incident that happened that made the news, don't let it go by. Make sure that you explain in your company why that didn't affect you, right? So that's always one that helps selling your solution. If you can tie it back to, we have these and these and these things in place, this is why that thing didn't affect us. That's an important one. And I think simply metrics, like with Proofpoint, we actually show in a graph each month to the CEOs, like, hey, we get, these are real numbers, we get 5 million emails per month, and only 490,000 make it actually to the inbox. The rest is all getting filtered by Proofpoint based on reputation, based on all, and we can actually show them why they got filtered out. And I think those are very, very real numbers.
All right. Okay.
And then,
Okay.
of course, we go back to, attacks that happen to the company itself, like phishing is always a good example,
Sure.
right? To say, this is the effect of phishing. And the other thing we do now to kind of sell new tools is we use purple teaming, right? So I have great purple teaming to actually BAS tools, breach and attack simulation. And basically we can show with these tools that if somebody clicks on a phishing link, for instance, what exactly the blast radius is. And it helps explaining that how dangerous one click can be, right? Just by showing this is the immediate blast radius of that one click, and this is the tool that should help. And that's also where obviously the training comes in, right? Nobody likes to get these security awareness trainings, but as long as you can tie them in with actual incidents, or what we do, if you click on a phishing link, you immediately get a training assigned.
Got it.
Those things help too.
All right. Right. Okay. Now, you didn't speak about training. So this is, I don't know, we can call it a riddle. If you have to choose between cybersecurity training for employees or privileged access management, which would be the first thing that you would ensure that is happening?
I would say training.
Oh, okay. And why?
Yeah. If people can recognize the threat, or at least are a little bit more aware of it, I think that ultimately, and they just don't click on a link, or don't give their credentials away. I think that ultimately has more effect than just a tool, because no tool will catch everything.
True.
Obviously, you need both. There's no question about it. But if there's only one to start with, to me, it would be training.
Okay. Okay. Well said. Okay. Okay. Probably another question. There's a lot of conversation about AI in cybersecurity, and
Yeah.
roles of people have been changing. The concept of cybersecurity is also evolving with AI. In fact, I think cybersecurity industry is one of the first industries that adopted AI and machine learning for to understand attacks, get rid of false positives and things like that. So, how do you see an evolution? How much of an AI will be surrounding us probably in the future?
Well, I think well, first of all, there's a lot of tools that claim to have AI, and it really isn't AI, right?
Right.
It's the decision tree, right, with some data behind it. But I think there are, AI self-learning tools or unsupervised learning tools that, for instance, in the email space, because there's so many factors, and I think we see product improvement there. So less involvement of tuning and feeding and caring it, because these products are just should live off the telemetry from the rest of the world, right? And the big CrowdStrikes and Proofpoints are a good example of that. I think the main thing where we're going to see a difference, in my opinion, is in the NLP, in the natural language processing. Because if you ask any SOC or employee, they're getting alert fatigue and report fatigue right quickly, right? There's too many reports. Each tool spits out its own report and its own alert. And what I've seen now, especially in the Middle East, Israel, etc., there's a lot of companies now starting to say, send me all those reports, and we'll just summarize it for you, and we'll provide you proof for an alert if there is any proof. And I'm working with a few of those as a design partner, and it's actually quite interesting how much noise NLP can filter out, right? So you can focus on the right ones, and you can
Right.
actually see, hey, based on all this telemetry, this is actually a true um, incident that we need to look at, or misconfiguration or whatever it is. And it's quite amazing how much you can do with NLP. Just feeding it different reports. And I think that's going to be huge, because I think AI can just filter out the noise and give the SOC analysts at least a smaller set to look at.
All right. Okay. Okay. Lastly, I think of late we are seeing a lot of cyber attacks from very really evolved ransomware gangs. The kind of function that Lockbit is doing, Clock is doing, and things like that. As in, we kind of are surrounded. We don't know which company, probably our neighbor, is going to be the next company that's attacked. So we are actually in a very precarious environment, if I may. So in this case, in this scenario, well, firstly, what exactly are your, a few tips that you can have companies adopt, especially when it comes to ransomware prevention? And secondly, what is our future like?
For ransomware protection, I think eventually the ransomware insurances will go away, right? Because they can't afford it anymore. So I don't think we'll have that luxury in a few years. It's already becoming quite unaffordable. What I do think is, which is very obvious, but still undervalued, I think, is having a proper backup strategy, which sounds very simple, but most companies, I've seen very little companies who actually have a solid backup strategy, test their backups, disaster recovery test, to make sure these backups actually work. So I think that's one, right? Because a lot of these ransomware attacks are low and slow attacks, and they've been sitting there for months and months. So your backups are already infected for a number of months, right? If they want to. I think the AI on the network level is starting to get a little better, where these type of little beacons that they plant are getting detected nowadays, easier, at least on network level, right? Everything used to be host based before, and I think it's all shifting to network, and it's a lot of data, but with AI it's a lot easier to find anomalies. So I think that's will help. The other thing is, I think dark web monitoring tools like CISO, I think, will also help us prevent ransomware, because we are picking up chatter sometimes, from ransomware forums, where they want to collectively do an attack. You might see, usually red teamers, or hackers, I should say, the white hats try to come in through, or the black hats try to come into, just with user ID passwords. So there's a lot of stolen or leaked credentials that are being used, and those things are easily getting picked up by the better AI-driven dark web tools. And we have a lot of success with cyber in that case, because it does pick up all those credentials, and all these little things, help with just better indication of is there something going on, or is there something brewing. So I think AI on network detection level, and AI on deep and dark web monitoring will just make it harder to infiltrate for the attacker, and B, to sell the data, right? Because there's a lot of eyes on them nowadays too, and we've actually rolled a few groups up together with the FBI, as a combination of obviously the FBI personas in the dark web, together with our network and dark web telemetry. And that stuff is so big, right? The data, you can only do with AI.
True that. All right, all right. Thanks a lot, Erwin. Is there any closing notes that you have for us?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I've seen more value than I thought from dark web monitoring, because I thought it's just, kind of a fun thing and more like for threat hunting, but it's way more than that, actually. And especially tools that also combine dark web with social media, right? Because both are equally important. Yeah, and AI. I used to be kind of cautious and skeptical about AI. But I'm starting to change my mind. I'm starting to see it totally not as a replacement, but as my friend, right? My coworker that saves me a lot of time and weeds out all the negatives. So I'm starting to welcome AI more and more.
Great, great, great. I think that's the future is going to be. So it's better that you adapt.
Okay.
All right. All right. Thanks a ton, Erwin. It was an amazing conversation with you. You are a delight to have on the show.
Okay. Thank you so much.